Hello and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 7 of season 4 of Lower Decks. This one is called A Few Badges More. Because Badgie's back, bitches. And some other people who we will mention as this episode goes on, because we can tell who I like and who Moneca likes. So let's get into it. Initial reactions, Moneca, what did you think?
Oh my goodness, this episode should actually be called Daddy Issues or For Father's Love because I see a lot of parallel here with the but it has my formula for success. There are 4 away missions. I'm picking up some romantic vibes between Peanut Hamper and Agamus. So feeling that. But there was action, suspense, and multiple plots. I liked it. What about you?
I did like this episode, which I'm actually surprised because when I saw who was coming back, I was just like, can we just let this character die? Like, what are we doing? Because I think it reminded me at the beginning of this season when we were trying to figure out who the bad person was. I think I had said, and I should go back and listen to the episode, but I'm pretty sure I said I don't want it to be Badgie and I don't want it to be Peanut Hamper. Like, I did not want to see them again. I wanted something new. So this episode had all of them. In one. And so initially I thought they were all like working together. So I will say the twists and little turns of this episode did not go in the way that I anticipated. So I did like it for that fact. I think we got resolution with 2 of these people. I will never trust Badgie. And we're going to talk about it because neither did Tindy or Mariner. So let's go ahead and just sort of break into this episode because it was a little bit of everything. And then the ending really did sort of push the narrative along a little bit more. So this episode, if you have not watched it yet, and you should watch it now, Badgie's back, and we see it's the version of Badgie that was ripped out of Rutherford's head from like season 1, I think, when they were going up against the scavengers, and we see the scavengers again, and they pick up Badgie, and he tricks them into putting him on, and sort of takes over their scavenger ship. And at the same time, Peanut Hamper is up for parole very quickly, even though she had turned on Starfleet so quickly. And Tindy's going to go hear her out. And Agnes, I'm saying his name wrong, has some information for his little lieutenant. How did he describe him? Like, his little meat sack that betrayed him. And we see that he is sent to go and hear him out and hear what news he has regarding all the missing ships. And it makes me think that maybe he did have something to do with it, and this was all, like we all know, it is a trap. Or it's supposed to be like a little trap because he is breaking out of prison and Badgie goes crazy and Peanut Hamper just wants to go back to her roots. She had her college experience. So many stories, so many differences. Let's talk about Peanut Hamper and Agnes's relationship first. Did you see that coming after the last part?
No, of course not, because the last time I saw her in a more intimate relationship was with the people. But she definitely has grown, and I'm now no longer calling Peanut Hamper an it. She has definitely developed personality traits and like of a humanoid. And so yes, Boimler, she has been rehabilitated. And this was third time the charm, and it worked. And after the counseling sessions and gardening and watching Lassie and all sorts of other nice, wholesome things that Starfleet does for rehabilitation, she has reflected and decided that in her heart of hearts, she wants to be like reunited with her father and explore her other side of her, and that she was complaining about many episodes ago. So it has come. Her character has come around full circle.
Okay, so Peanut Hamper is the stereotype of the super privileged girl who wants to just rebel against her parents and goes out and goes crazy and goes bad and just realizes how good she actually had it. And I just still don't care about her. Like I like it was just weird. It was so weird watching her storyline and then like seeing that like she, because we see it in like celebrities when they get like this like facade on, like we see her in her original colors again, like back to how everyone else looked. Like, okay, daddy, I'm done being independent and think and like just railing against society. I'm gonna go back to being what I know. And I don't know. I guess maybe I just hate her so much that I just can't let her I just cannot. But Agnes' story actually was sort of interesting because last time we saw him, all he wanted to do was just rule over everyone. And then when he was locked up in the jail for computers, all he wanted to do again was still rule and take over. And how he and Peanut Hamper created this sort of symbiotic relationship. Because let's be honest, she didn't have to do anything with him. It was like, I didn't understand that part of the plan for at least from her side of perspective, because you were still on parole. No matter what, you were getting out. You didn't have to like entertain him also breaking out at the same time. That part didn't make any sense to me because maybe it's not supposed to make sense to me. But it's sort of interesting to see how much codependent he became on her, to the point even where he like was going to the rendezvous point. Which again, why did she have to do that? She was out legally. Um, and then to take over a whole planet and hope that she would be there and come. It was interesting. It was weird, but it was interesting.
I feel as though she has had a jail friend and that they had developed a rapport. I mean, they're kind of like trapped, and this was the only person that we noticed that she was hanging out with.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were trying to project something in the future, like some sort of hope, something, some sort of mission for the next that they could bond over. And so that they could, I think that she could have a like befriend and be a buddy with someone. And so she developed this scheme with him because that's what like traditional sinister robots do, is try to take over the galaxy. And then it seems as though once she was taken through counseling and she was at the stage in which she was reflecting more, at the very end, that last stage, she had a moment in which she decided at a switch to change, but she never circled back to her jailhouse friend to say, "Oh, I'm changing my plans." I think she just didn't think that Artemis was going to get out. She was going to be accountable for that promise and that commitment that she made.
Mutual destruction. That's what keeps people like in a bad relationship. Mutual destruction. It's like, I know you won't say anything bad about me because you can like, because I will say something bad about you. Like, we're still friends or we're enemies, but we'll never cross that line because I don't want to go to jail and you don't want to go to jail. And I know if you snitch me out, I'm gonna snitch you out. So like, it seemed like that was almost like their relationship, except again, Peanut Hamper didn't have to have that relationship. Like, she could have told on him. Let's say she was like, okay, by the way, he's like planning on escaping and lying to the Federation because we made a plan to meet if I got out on parole. That would only help her parole thing. Like, he had nothing on her because it doesn't make it, to me, I guess it didn't make sense that she was getting out legally at the same time while he was trying to escape. I think for me, it would have made more sense if she was also lying and they were both having different Federation people talk to them and they were going to use that time to escape. That's just that in my brain, the plan wasn't working because it was just like, oh yeah, what's the plan? And we're going to rendezvous here and all this stuff. Like, she doesn't have to do anything in the shadows because she's out legally. And that was the point that just didn't make sense to me. It's like, it seemed like they were still planning, like everything she had to do was underhanded as well, which maybe I'm just missing the point of this episode. But again, I really just don't like Peanut Hamper. So anything with her sort of goes in one ear, out the other.
Well, their ultimate goal is to take over the galaxy. So that in itself is illegal. So then that also means that they had a foresight and a plan and stuff like that. So it is something that you want to keep on the down low.
Yeah, but she could always just say she was just talking. And then if she's the one who snitched him out about that, and she was one who was up for parole, that just looked good in her favor. And we've seen her do it in the past, turn on people. So I guess maybe it is growth that she didn't turn on him and she just said went home to her family, but still don't like her.
But Agamas, he is a strategist because he worked out with the parole board to be able to get like drones so that he could water the plants, but secretly he could use that for his other quests.
And like, why didn't they tell Boimler and Tindy that he could do that? Like, why would you not say, oh, by the way, I know you're taking him off site to go so he can give you information, but he can create drones that do his bidding. So maybe let's disable this function while he's like out and about. Like, what? Like, did no one think that was something that Boimler needed to know? Like, why was this information not shared?
That part doesn't make sense to me. Many aspects on the Badgie side doesn't as well. This happens, but the I don't understand why also Agamas had to physically go with Boimler and Timdy because you should be able to like share files without physically going somewhere in the
Because like
far
you obviously
future.
picked it up. Like you obviously picked it up while you were in jail, meaning you didn't have to physically be there.
Right.
So you're right. This is weird. That whole side of the episode didn't make sense to me. Now on to the side that did make sense to me a little bit more. That's still sort of like, okay, we've seen him again. What's going on? Badgie's back. And he still has daddy issues. So Moneca is correct that this episode should have been called Daddy Issues because he has daddy issues. And we see that Rutherford is like, you know what? Crap. I ain't got nothing. I got nothing in the tank to fight him. Let's go. I'm gonna sacrifice myself. But doesn't tell anyone. And Marina's like, what's the plan? And I will commend her for going to help, but I also would be like, did you not stop to think what, like maybe ask the plan ahead of time? Because he was prepared to just die. Rutherford was prepared to die. Like, Mariner, like I love that you're there to help, but maybe you should have stayed on the ship for this one. Because Badgie is not your typical villain. Badgie is crazy. And we see that Rutherford just once, the first thing is he tries to love and accept him and says, you know what, you were always my son, and I'm very sorry for how I've treated you. And Badgie literally has to expel the code that wants to keep Rutherford alive out of him because he hates him so much. And his name is now Goodgie, or the second entity. And then he becomes a little bit more evil and crazy because all the good is out of him. All the love and caring that cares about Rutherford is gone, and now it's just evil. And then Rutherford's like, all right, I'm gonna try and get him logically. Like, what does killing everyone solve? And then Badgie spits out logic out of him because he can't. He cannot. He does not want anything inside of him that does not just let him kill. Which also, again, Rutherford, where did you go wrong building this? And please stop building AIs because, like, how? Like this? Why? How is this possible? Like, so many times this thing wants to kill you. And then we see that Badgie's like, I'm going to upload myself everywhere so I can see all of Starfleet at once and just kill everyone. And then we see what sort of happens to anyone who gets that much knowledge. They ascend to a higher plane. And we see that what saved Badgie was Badgie completing his goal of uploading himself everywhere, being everywhere at once, and realizing life wasn't worth it. Or this life wasn't worth it. And he's saying he's going to a whole new dimension and create a whole new world to be the god over them. And it's very interesting. I still don't think this is the end of Badgie. Because at the end of the episode, we see that Rutherford has learned nothing from his mistakes and has Goodgie aboard the Cerritos with them all. And in true Tindy and Mariner smart fashion, they're like, we're gonna go because we don't trust him. And Badgie has always gone from good to evil. And now I'm wondering if Good could maybe be corrupted sometime in the future, because that's what always happens to Badgie, because Badgie can't be trusted. But I did like that side of the episode a little bit more.
Well, I'm puzzled why only Mariner went after Rutherford and no one from security.
Yeah.
Like,
Because
there's
last
no
time
one.
Shax died.
Right, they have 9 lives, so send someone else, send an office a security officer. Also, with Mariner, once you notice that there's 2 individuals that left the ship, or use some. I don't know. I was just puzzled by that. But trying to move past that, it was interesting to see how Badgie was split. Sort of like a clone of him, but only like different sides of him was popped out. And so there was Goody, as you mentioned, and Logic-y. And so with Logic-y, I was kept thinking about Vulcans, very logical. But it was cool to see those sides together. I agree with you. I don't think this is the end of Badgie. I think we'll probably see him every season that Lower Decks is on. And once again, when he ascended, there was the koala bear.
Yeah.
So I'm still puzzled by that. He just keeps popping up. It's like, where's Waldo? But what's the connection there? And he's now like a god. He has like a god syndrome. So he talked about maybe exploring with Q. It'll be interesting to see how his character evolves and impacts whether it's also the bad Rutherford or something else in the future.
And then we come to sort of the end of the episode. Because at the opening of this episode, we see another race their ship has been destroyed and they're taken away, and it's another, oh my gosh, what is going on? What's happening to all these people? And this was the whole thing that got Agnes to Bournemouth to go to Agnes. And it turns out that he did have an actual secret, that the ships aren't being destroyed, they're being taken and kidnapped. So that means all the ships that we've seen throughout this season are still out there, that there's still a lot, that those crew members could still be alive, which makes you wonder, what was the light flash that they all screamed about? What was the whole thing? And then why did it look like we saw replicas or destruction ships out in space? Because they're not being attacked, they're being stolen. So now the mystery has gotten a little bit larger, and it's not Badgie who's behind it. It's not any of the other AIs that are behind it. So now I think we're really going to get introduced into a new character. Unless, because they brought back Badgie, the only other thing I could think of would be a different version of him, like the Texas class. Maybe it was like a part that didn't get destroyed and like is coming back to take back some ships to rebuild or something like that. That's the only other thing I can think of if it's someone we've already met. Because I don't think we've met anyone throughout this series of Lower Decks specifically who had the power to have like that type of ship where no one was able to get readings on them.
Also, Badgie stated that he can go into the past, present, and future. So if he could go into the past, that could change things. It could be like this weird spiral like Loki. I'm hoping not, because that is confusing to me.
The circle that never ends.
I'm much more like linear, flat timelines, but I hope they don't do that.
Very confused of where this is going, because like this was episode 7, and each season gives us about 10 episodes. So that means we only have 3 more episodes to figure this out. And with the way that they are hyping this up, I want this to be a good ending. And I feel like, unlike all the other Star Trek shows that we have talked about, Strange New World and Discovery, they have the ability to go the extra mile because it is animated. So they're not limited by just what a computer rendering could do or by like real live actors and actresses. They can create a crazy animated world ending for this season. So I really hope that they did not build up this entire story for us to just be disappointed by, like, really? This is the end? This is what you led us to? This is the hill you're gonna die on. Come on.
This could end with a season 4, episode 10, and a season 5,
Don't.
episode 1.
I will murder them.
Like they did for Captain Freeman's story.
Oh my! Whole words cannot explain how pissed off I would be.
I feel that way too, especially with the strikes. But but you know, with Star Trek, they sometimes do that.
Like, please don't do that, writers. I really hope that's not the end. I really do hope they have a different ending for us, because I want this to be like the ending of season 3, where it was where we had everyone, like a whole camaraderie, everyone comes together and fights, and it's like, huzzah, yes, awesome. I want that. Please give us that.
Speaking of the endings, I noticed that at the end, Artemis had another conversation with a robot, Tyrilius. And so, what a name, right?
Such a long name.
About Artemis kind of healing and talking about not taking over the world, but here's another robot that's talking about taking over the world. So I'm hoping they don't continue this cycle again. Like, okay, we've told this story already, let's move on. Unless they're trying to show us a thing that, like, I don't know, we should always be concerned about AI.
Well, I do hope that Agamus did change and wants to go back and live with his best friend and have a different type of life. Even though there is nothing Peanut Hamper could do that would make me like that girl, because I refuse to like her. I can't. It's in my DNA to not like her. I don't like Peanut Hamper. I don't. I do not want her to have a redemption arc. Ugh.
Okay. So in this episode, we were introduced to 7 robots, AI, and Peanut Hamper wanted to be reunited with her father, Kevin. And so we were also able to see the evolution of some of these bots, because Kevin couldn't speak. He didn't have like an auditory tone. He was able to beep. So beep to communicate. So I thought that moment, it was really short, but was special because it showed the evolution of those. And I know you don't care, but for me, I really liked that storyline within Peanut Hamper and showing other types of bots that were cleaning, and how they also contribute to that remote location.
But it could go to say that she broadened her mind more than like the older generation of robots did, because she learned to speak a different language.
Oh, yeah. One more thing. Like, since when is like red bad and blue is good? But
how did also no one work there? Like, let's go back to these people who are like in charge of these evil. Hey, he's blue today. He's red here. Like, did you not see him change from red to blue as you were carrying him? Oh, by the way, boy alert, that blue light, he's faking it. Like, where was the download of information of warning the Starfleet agent, don't trust him? Like, were you so removed from dealing with people every day or dealing with these robots every day that you didn't think you had to inform the person who's about to take charge of them of their upgrades, of what they like? I just wonder why was like this episode was a episode to me, and like dumb decisions just to move the plot forward. And it just didn't make sense to me, because anytime there's a prison transfer, you explain everything to the person who's taking them on. And like, if the prisoner can break his thumbs to get out of his cuffs, maybe you should tell the person who's taking him, oh, by the way, you're going to have to like double cuff him or something like that because he can break his thumb. He can dislocate his thumb to get out of cuffs. Like if I don't, like that's not knowledge I would know, you know? So like I would expect the prison who's dealt with him doing that to inform me, by the way, he can dislocate his thumb and get out of his cuff. So be careful and be aware of that. Like always have something on him or cuff him to two separate things so he can't like put his hands together. By the way, he turns his light from red to blue all the time, and we upgraded him so he can have his own like wireless drones that he can make 1,000 of out of nowhere. Like he doesn't even have to take in any other matter to create these things. By the way, this can happen. Like, why was this not told to them?
Oh, yes. Why didn't Rutherford create a backdoor, an off switch for Badgey and learn that you need to create it for Goody, like before deploying another one and working with him because he's once again called them father. So like that and Artemis and all sorts of other things, you would think that Starfleet would install some sort of override once they're in this rehabilitation center. But hey, this makes good stories.
Yep, it's interesting. I will say though, in the very beginning of this episode, before we end, the way that they set up Badgey made it seem like he was the one who was attacking all these ships, and it's very interesting that to find out that he was just like commenting. I was like, oh, someone must have attacked them. So that was like a little bit of a red herring they threw at the very beginning because I was like, oh yes, finally an episode that we're getting the answers, and we got no answers. So, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
They laid the story writers laid the groundwork for us in the very beginning with Tendy's statement about science and engineering and is messy. And we continue to see that again and again with the 7 AI bots, and then also just the unraveling of Badgey. Yes, science and engineering is messy, but you need to have control over it. And you need to have parental control. You need to have an override switch. That's my final thought on this.
My thought is a thought that I believe in both TV and in real life. Stop giving AI free will. I do not need a computer to think for itself because every single time the computer thinks for itself, people die. Just stop. I do not need AI to think for itself. I will never need AI to think for itself. I do not want AI to have a conscious thought at all because I don't believe we're going to survive if AI does. So stop, Rutherford. Stop building. And if a computer thinks of you as a parent, turn that computer off. Turn it off. Unplug it. We're done. Because then that means it has emotions. And a computer that's trying to understand emotions will ultimately kill you. Don't trust AI, people. It will kill us all. Terminator has taught us that. We all think we're going to survive. We're not. And that's morbid to end the episode on. So, as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Moneca.
And then long and prosper.